Bilionário asked for divorce by text, until a call said she was in labor with triplets. Welcome to Secrets Narrated. Before we begin, drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. When the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10 and share what you felt along the way. And if you enjoy emotional stories filled with twists and hidden truths, make sure to follow Secrets Narrated so you don't miss the next one. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy every detail. Grant Holloway adjusted his platinum watch and stared at the contracts spread across his mahogany desk. Numbers danced before his tired eyes. Millions that would soon become billions if this international deal closed successfully. At 37, he had built Holloway Investment Group from nothing into one of the most powerful financial empires on the East Coast. Success had a price, and he had always been willing to pay it. His phone buzzed against the polished surface. Leah's name appeared on the screen, followed by a preview of her message. "Grant, we need to talk when you get home. The ultrasound today showed..." He swiped the notification away without reading the rest. Whatever domestic issue awaited him at home would have to wait. The Tokyo merger demanded his complete attention, and in 2 days, he would be flying to Japan for what could be the most important 8 months of his career. Grant's assistant knocked softly before entering. "Mr. Holloway, your car is ready for the evening meeting with the Yamamoto representatives." "Perfect." He gathered his documents, slipping his phone into his jacket pocket without checking Leah's message. "Make sure all the international travel arrangements are confirmed. I want everything seamless." The ride to the downtown hotel gave him 30 minutes to review the presentation one final time. Through the tinted windows, he watched couples walking hand in hand along the sidewalks, their faces illuminated by street lamps. A fleeting thought of Leah crossed his mind. Her warm brown eyes, the way she used to wait up for him with dinner prepared, her gentle laughter that once filled their spacious Connecticut home. They had been married for 3 years, together for 5. Leah Morrison had been a successful marketing coordinator when they met at a business conference. She was intelligent, ambitious, and had her own dreams before she became Mrs. Holloway. Lately, those dreams seemed to revolve around things Grant wasn't ready for: stability, presence, planning a future that included more than quarterly profits. The hotel's revolving doors deposited him into a world of marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The Japanese investors were already seated in the private dining room, their expressions polite but calculating. Grant switched into negotiation mode, his personal life relegated to a distant corner of his consciousness. "Holloway-san," Mr. Yamamoto stood with a respectful bow. "We are very pleased to finally meet in person. The pleasure is mine entirely." Grant's smile was practiced, confident. "I believe what we're about to discuss will revolutionize both our portfolios." The dinner lasted 3 hours. Contracts were reviewed, terms negotiated, and handshakes exchanged that would set Grant's trajectory for the next several months. As he walked back to his car, the autumn air sharp against his face, Grant felt the familiar rush of a successful deal. This was who he was, a man who turned opportunities into empires. His phone had been silent during dinner, which was unusual. Leah typically sent several messages throughout his business evenings, updates about her day, questions about his schedule, small intimacies that kept them connected despite his demanding career. Sliding into the back seat of his car, Grant finally checked his phone. 7 missed calls from Leah, 12 unread messages. His stomach tightened with irritation rather than concern. She knew how important tonight was. The messages began normally. "Grant, we need to talk when you get home. The ultrasound today showed..." But they quickly escalated. "Please call me back when you get a chance. Grant, this is important. I know you're busy, but I really need to talk to you tonight. The doctor said there are some things we need to discuss together." The final message was sent just 20 minutes ago. "I'm going to bed. I guess we'll talk tomorrow, or whenever you have time." Grant stared at the screen, recognizing the hurt beneath Leah's carefully controlled words. She had been increasingly emotional lately, more demanding of his time and attention. He understood that marriage required effort, but his career was at a crucial juncture. Every decision he made now would determine whether Holloway Investment Group remained successful or became legendary. Their house appeared ahead, warm light glowing from the windows of what had once felt like a sanctuary. Now it felt like another obligation, another place where someone needed something from him. Leah was already asleep when he entered their bedroom, her auburn hair spread across the pillow, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. The moonlight highlighted the gentle curve of her profile, reminding him of why he had fallen in love with her in the first place. She had been fierce and independent, never asking for more than he could give. Things had changed. He set his phone on the nightstand and noticed a manila folder on his side of the bed with a note attached. From today's appointment. We need to discuss this tomorrow, no matter what. L. Grant picked up the folder but didn't open it. Whatever was inside could wait until after his trip. Leah had always been understanding about his work demands. She would understand about this too. As he prepared for bed, Grant's mind was already in Tokyo, mapping out presentation strategies and calculating profit margins. The folder remained unopened on the nightstand, its contents a mystery that would have to wait for his return. What would you have done if the person you loved stopped hearing you completely? 2 weeks later, Grant stood in the marble lobby of the Mandarin Oriental in Tokyo. His reflection multiplied endlessly in the polished surfaces around him. The Yamamoto deal had exceeded every expectation. $3 billion in assets under management, with expansion opportunities that would establish Holloway Investment Group as a global powerhouse. His phone displayed 17 unread messages from Leah, accumulated over the past 5 days. Each notification had arrived while he was in crucial meetings, high-stakes dinners, or presentations that demanded his complete focus. The time difference made communication even more complicated. When he was free, she was sleeping, and when she was awake, he was closing deals that couldn't wait. Grant scrolled through the message previews without opening them. The doctor wants to see both of us. Grant, please call when you can. I had another appointment today and... Each preview ended with an ellipsis, hiding information he told himself he would catch up on later. His assistant Jennifer had followed him to Tokyo to manage his packed schedule. She approached now with a tablet full of appointments. Mr. Holloway, the Singapore investors want to meet tomorrow instead of Thursday, and there's been a request for you to extend your stay for the Hong Kong expansion talks. How long? Grant asked, his eyes still scanning the latest financial projections. Another month, possibly 6 weeks. The opportunities are unprecedented. Grant nodded without hesitation. Make it happen. This is exactly what we've been building toward. 8,000 miles away, Leah sat in Dr. Martinez's office, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The ultrasound screen showed 3 distinct shapes, 3 heartbeats that had changed everything about her pregnancy and her life. Mrs. Holloway, carrying triplets will require significant lifestyle changes, Dr. Martinez explained gently. More frequent appointments, possible bed rest in the 3rd trimester, and you'll need a strong support system. Is your husband able to be more present during this time? Leah's throat tightened. She had been trying to tell Grant about the triplets for 2 weeks, but their conversations had become increasingly brief and distracted. He's traveling internationally for work. It's complicated. I understand business demands can be challenging, but triplet pregnancies carry higher risks. We'll need to monitor you very closely, especially given some of the irregularities we discussed today. The word irregularities sent a chill through Leah. She had hoped Grant would be there to hear the doctor's explanation, to ask the questions she was too frightened to voice. Instead, she sat alone, taking notes on medical terms she didn't fully understand. That evening, Leah tried calling Grant during what she calculated might be his lunch break. The phone rang once before going to voicemail. She waited 2 hours and tried again. Same result. She composed a careful text. Grant, I really need to talk to you. It's about the pregnancy. There are some developments we need to discuss together. Can we video call tonight? The response came 4 hours later. Swamped with meetings. We'll call soon. Soon never came. In Tokyo, Grant was experiencing the intoxicating rush of success. The Singapore meeting had gone flawlessly, adding another $1 billion to their potential portfolio. He celebrated with the Yamamoto team at an exclusive restaurant overlooking the city skyline, sake flowing as they toasted partnerships that would reshape international finance. His phone buzzed with another message from Leah. Grant glanced at the preview. Grant, I'm scared. The doctor said, Holloway-san, Mr. Yamamoto raised his glass, to a partnership that will make history. Grant raised his own glass, sliding his phone face down on the table, to making history. The celebration continued until nearly midnight Tokyo time. When Grant finally returned to his hotel suite, jet lag and alcohol made Leah's messages feel like distant obligations. He scrolled through them quickly, noting words like appointment, doctor, and scared, but the details blurred together. He started to type a response several times. Sorry, crazy schedule. We'll call tomorrow. Everything okay? Instead, he set the phone aside and opened his laptop. The Hong Kong expansion required his immediate attention, and success demanded sacrifices. Leah had always understood that about him. She had married a man driven by ambition, and that ambition was currently providing them with a lifestyle most people could only dream of. Meanwhile, Leah lay awake in their Connecticut home, her hand resting on her still flat stomach, where 3 lives were growing. The house felt enormous and empty around her, every creak and settling sound amplified by Grant's absence. She had tried calling her sister Emma, but how could she explain that her billionaire husband was too busy to learn he was about to become the father of triplets? How could she admit that she felt more alone now than she had before she was married? The manila folder from her doctor's appointment sat on Grant's nightstand, exactly where she had left it 3 weeks ago. Inside were ultrasound photos showing 3 tiny figures, medical reports outlining the increased risks of multiple births, and scheduling information for the more frequent appointments she would need. Grant had never opened it. At 3 a.m. Connecticut time, Leah sent one final message. "I know you're building something important. I just hope you remember that we're building something important too." Grant read it the next morning while reviewing contracts over coffee and croissants. The message struck him as unnecessarily dramatic, but he was already running late for a breakfast meeting that could secure their expansion into European markets. He typed back, "Of course, we'll talk soon. Love you." Then he closed his phone and walked into a conference room where millions of dollars were waiting to be negotiated, leaving Leah's world thousands of miles and several time zones behind. 6 weeks into his extended trip, Grant had become a ghost in his own marriage. Hong Kong's glittering skyline stretched before him as he stood in his penthouse suite, reviewing acquisition documents that would triple Holloway Investment Group's Asian presence. The deal was so massive, it required his personal oversight for every detail, a responsibility that had extended his trip indefinitely. His phone showed 43 unread messages from Leah, spanning 3 weeks. The previews had grown increasingly urgent. "Grant, please. The doctor says I'm having complications. Where are you?" Each time he started to open them, another crisis demanded his attention. A merger in Singapore, regulatory issues in Shanghai, investor meetings that couldn't be postponed. Grant told himself he would call Leah after the dust settled, when he could give her his full attention. That moment never seemed to arrive. Jennifer knocked on his suite door with their morning schedule. "Mr. Holloway, the Beijing team wants to accelerate the timeline. They're offering an additional $2 billion if we can close by month's end." "What does that require from us?" Grant asked, pulling on his charcoal suit jacket. "Your presence in Beijing for the next 3 weeks, minimum, and they want exclusivity on your time. No distractions." Grant glanced at his phone one more time. Leah's latest message was time-stamped 2 a.m. Connecticut time. "Grant, I don't know how to reach you anymore." He turned the phone face down. "Book it. This could set us up for the next decade." Meanwhile, Leah sat in an emergency room in Hartford, her sister Emma holding her hand as they waited for test results. The cramping had started that morning, along with spotting that sent her into a panic. At 14 weeks pregnant with triplets, any bleeding was cause for immediate concern. "Mrs. Holloway?" Dr. Martinez appeared with a clipboard and a carefully neutral expression. "The good news is all 3 heartbeats are strong. However, your blood pressure is elevated, and we're seeing signs of early pregnancy complications that we discussed could develop with multiples." Emma squeezed Leah's hand. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means complete bed rest for the next 2 weeks, frequent monitoring, and honestly, Mrs. Holloway needs to minimize stress. High-stress situations can exacerbate these complications significantly." Dr. Martinez looked directly at Leah. "Is there any way your husband can return from his business trip? You're going to need support during this period." Leah's laugh was hollow. "He doesn't even know I'm here." She had stopped trying to call Grant after the 5th attempt went straight to voicemail. Instead, she had driven herself to the hospital, called Emma from the waiting room, and was now facing potential pregnancy complications alone. "Leah," Emma said gently, "maybe it's time to be more direct. Send him one clear message explaining exactly what's happening." That evening, Leah composed the most honest text she had ever sent her husband. "Grant, I'm in the hospital. I'm pregnant with triplets and having complications. The doctor says I need bed rest and support. I need you to come home. This isn't something I can handle alone anymore." She sent it at what would be Grant's morning in Beijing and waited for hours for a response. Grant was in the middle of the most important presentation of his career when his phone buzzed on the conference table. 12 investors from 3 countries were hanging on his every word as he outlined a revolutionary approach to international fund management. The room was electric with possibility. Fortunes were being made with every slide. The message preview appeared on his locked screen. Grant, I'm in the hospital. Grant's concentration wavered for a fraction of a second, but he forced himself to continue. This presentation would determine whether Holloway Investment Group became a regional player or a global empire. Everything he had worked for over the past 15 years culminated in this moment. He clicked to the next slide, his voice steady and confident, while the phone buzzed 2 more times with follow-up messages from Leah. The presentation concluded to enthusiastic applause and handshakes that sealed deals worth over $5 billion. Grant had officially entered the ranks of the financial world's elite, joining a circle of billionaires whose influence shaped global markets. Only when he returned to his hotel room 6 hours later did he remember to check his phone. Leah's messages formed a timeline of desperation. Grant, I'm in the hospital. I'm pregnant with triplets and having complications. Please call me back immediately. The doctor needs to speak with both of us. Grant, where are you? I've been discharged, but I'm scared and I don't know what's happening. The words triplets and complications finally broke through his professional tunnel vision. Grant stared at the screen, reading the messages again. Triplets. She was carrying 3 babies, and she had been trying to tell him for weeks. His hand shook slightly as he scrolled back through weeks of ignored messages, seeing patterns he had missed. Ultrasound showed. Doctor said. Need to discuss. Scared. Complications. Grant tried calling immediately, but it was 3 a.m. in Connecticut. The phone rang 6 times before Leah's exhausted voice answered. Grant? Leah, I just saw your messages. Are you okay? What happened? There was a long pause. When Leah spoke again, her voice was flat, emotionless. I was in the hospital for 6 hours today. I drove myself there when I started bleeding. Emma met me there because I had no one else to call. Bleeding? Jesus, Leah, why didn't you? I tried to call you 17 times over the past 3 weeks, Grant. 17 times. Every call went to voicemail. The accusation hung between them across the thousands of miles. Grant opened his mouth to explain about the Beijing deal, the time difference, the incredible opportunities that were reshaping their future. Instead, he heard himself say, I didn't know about the triplets. I've been trying to tell you for 2 months, Leah whispered. The manila folder on your nightstand has all the ultrasound photos. I thought you would want to see them. Grant looked around his luxurious Beijing hotel suite, with its panoramic city views and marble surfaces, feeling more isolated than he had ever felt in his life. Leah, I have to go, she interrupted. The doctor said stress is dangerous for the babies. This conversation is stressing me. The line went dead, leaving Grant alone with the silence of his success and the echo of everything he had missed. Grant hadn't slept in 3 days. The Beijing hotel room that had once felt like a palace now felt like a prison, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of a city that suddenly seemed meaningless. Every successful meeting, every signed contract, every billion-dollar handshake felt hollow against the memory of Leah's voice saying, 17 times. He had tried calling back immediately after she hung up, but her phone went straight to voicemail. He tried again every hour for the next 2 days. Each attempt met the same automated response until he realized she had blocked his number. His laptop remained closed on the mahogany desk, ignoring urgent emails from investors and partners who expected his immediate attention. For the first time in his career, Grant Holloway was paralyzed by something that couldn't be solved with money or negotiations. Jennifer found him staring out the window at 6 a.m., still wearing yesterday's clothes. Mr. Holloway, the Shanghai team is waiting for your conference call. Should I reschedule? Cancel it, Grant said without turning around. Cancel everything for today. Sir, the merger deadline. I said cancel everything. His voice carried an edge that made Jennifer step back. And book me a flight home, the earliest one available. 12 hours later, Grant's private jet touched down in Hartford at 2 a.m. local time. He hadn't slept during the 14-hour flight, his mind cycling through every ignored message, every missed call, every moment he had chosen business over the woman carrying his children. Triplets. The word still felt surreal. The house was dark when his car pulled into the circular driveway. Grant used his key quietly, not wanting to wake Leah if she was finally resting. The foyer felt different somehow, colder, despite the familiar warmth of their shared space. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step weighted with dread. Their bedroom door was closed and he could hear the soft sound of Leah's breathing from within. Grant pushed the door open just enough to see inside. Leah was lying on her side, surrounded by pillows that supported her back and legs, a setup he didn't recognize. The nightstand on her side was covered with pill bottles, medical pamphlets, and a notebook filled with what looked like appointment times and symptoms. Her face, even in sleep, looked exhausted in a way that makeup couldn't hide. The manila folder still sat on his nightstand, exactly where she had left it weeks ago. Grant picked it up with trembling hands and finally opened it. 3 ultrasound images slipped out, each clearly labeled with dates spanning the past 10 weeks. Baby A, Baby B, Baby C. 3 distinct shapes, 3 tiny humans who were half him and half the woman he was losing. Medical reports detailed increased risks, required lifestyle changes, and a timeline of appointments he had missed. The most recent ultrasound was dated just 1 week ago. A handwritten note was attached. All 3 babies are developing normally, but mother shows signs of stress-induced complications. Partner support is crucial for successful pregnancy outcome. Grant sat heavily in the chair beside their bed, studying the ultrasound images in the dim light. His children, 3 babies who would be born in 5 months, whether he was present for their lives or not. Leah stirred and opened her eyes, finding him sitting there in his wrinkled business suit, the medical folder open in his lap. For a moment, neither spoke. "You came back," she said finally, her voice carefully neutral. "I should never have left." Grant leaned forward, the ultrasound photos still in his hands. "Leah, I'm so sorry. I didn't know about the triplets, about the complications. If I had known—" "You did know I was pregnant." Leah struggled to sit up against her pillows, wincing slightly. "You knew that, and you still disappeared. The business deals were time-sensitive. Our marriage was time-sensitive too." Leah's voice was steady, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Our babies were time-sensitive. My health was time-sensitive." Grant looked down at the ultrasound images, seeing the tiny figures that represented everything he had been unknowingly abandoning. "What did the doctor say? Are you okay? Are they okay?" "We're on bed rest for the next month. High blood pressure, early signs of preeclampsia, and something called intrauterine growth restriction for baby C." Leah recited the medical terms like a grocery list, her voice devoid of emotion. "Emma has been staying here to help because I can't be alone." The mention of Emma hit Grant like a slap. His sister-in-law had been caring for his wife because he had been unreachable. "Where is she now?" "Guest room. She goes home during the day but stays overnight in case something happens." Leah studied his face in the dim light. "Grant, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." Grant set the folder on the nightstand and gave her his full attention for the first time in months. "If you had known about the triplets from the beginning, if you had known about the complications, would you have stayed?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of their entire relationship. Grant wanted to say yes immediately, to reassure her that nothing mattered more than their family, but Leah's eyes told him she would know if he was lying. "I don't know," he admitted finally, "and that's what terrifies me." Leah closed her eyes and leaned back against her pillows. "Thank you for being honest." They sat in silence for several minutes, the space between them feeling like an ocean, despite the fact that Grant could reach out and touch her hand if he chose to. "The doctor wants to see both of us tomorrow," Leah said eventually. "There are some decisions we need to make about the rest of the pregnancy." Grant nodded, studying her profile in the moonlight. "What kind of decisions?" "About whether I'll need to be hospitalized for monitoring. About what happens if the complications get worse. About—" She paused, her voice catching slightly. "About what happens if we have to choose between my safety and theirs." The words hit Grant like a physical blow. The possibility of losing Leah, of losing the babies, of losing everything that mattered because he had been chasing everything that didn't. It was more than his mind could process. "That won't happen," he said firmly. "Whatever we need to do, whatever it costs, whatever I need to sacrifice, you can't sacrifice what you've already given away, Grant." Leah opened her eyes and looked directly at him. "The question now is whether there's anything left to save." The doctor's appointment felt like a tribunal. Grant sat beside Leah in Dr. Martinez's office, his presence feeling both essential and unwelcome. 3 weeks had passed since his return, and while he had attended every medical appointment and hired a full-time nurse for home care, the emotional distance between them had only grown wider. "Mrs. Holloway, your blood pressure readings are concerning," Dr. Martinez said, reviewing the chart. "Despite bed rest and medication, we're seeing continued elevation, and baby C is still measuring small for gestational age." Grant leaned forward. "What does that mean for the pregnancy?" "Doctor." Martinez glanced between them, clearly sensing the tension. "It means we need to consider hospitalization for closer monitoring. At 20 weeks, we're approaching viability, but we want to get you as far along as possible." Leah's hand instinctively moved to her rounded belly, where the triplets were becoming more active each day. How long would I need to stay? Potentially until delivery. We're looking at 12 to 16 weeks of hospital bed rest. The room fell silent. Grant processed the timeline. 4 months of his wife in the hospital, carrying their children under constant medical supervision, while he figured out how to piece together a marriage he had systematically destroyed. Whatever she needs, Grant said immediately. The best room, private nurses, anything. Dr. Martinez nodded. There's one more thing we need to discuss. Given the complications and Mrs. Holloway's stress levels, we've seen cases where emotional support significantly impacts pregnancy outcomes. Have you considered counseling? Leah's laugh was bitter. We'd need to be speaking to each other for counseling to work. Grant felt the words like a physical blow. They had been living in the same house for 3 weeks, but Leah had built walls that money and apologies couldn't breach. She was polite, cooperative with medical decisions, and completely unreachable emotionally. I think, Leah said carefully, we should focus on keeping the babies healthy. Everything else can wait. That evening, Grant found Leah in their bedroom, packing a hospital bag with the methodical precision of someone preparing for war. Emma sat beside her, folding tiny baby clothes they had ordered online, their first purchases for the triplets. The hospital room has been arranged, Grant said from the doorway. Private suite, view of the gardens, space for family to stay overnight. Leah didn't look up from her packing. Thank you. Emma excused herself, sensing the tension. Grant stepped into the room, watching his wife fold maternity clothes with the same efficiency she once brought to her marketing career, the career she had put on hold when they married, planning to return after they settled down. Leah, we need to talk about what happens after the babies are born. Do we? She held up 2 identical nightgowns, choosing one. I think we've said everything we need to say. No, we haven't. Grant sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to disturb her organized piles. I know I failed you. I know I can't take back the months I was gone, the calls I didn't answer, the times you needed me and I wasn't there. Leah finally looked at him, her eyes reflecting a weariness that went deeper than pregnancy fatigue. Grant, do you know what the worst part was? It wasn't that you were busy. It wasn't even that you ignored my calls. She set down the nightgown and faced him fully. The worst part was realizing that I had become something you managed rather than someone you loved. I was another item on your to-do list. Something to handle later when it was more convenient. Grant opened his mouth to protest, but she continued. When I was sitting in that emergency room, bleeding and terrified that I might lose our babies, I didn't call you first. I called Emma. Because I knew she would answer. I knew she would drop everything and come. I knew she wouldn't make me feel like an interruption. The truth of her words settled between them like a verdict. Grant had trained his own wife not to depend on him, not to expect him to be present for the moments that mattered most. I can change, he said. I have changed. I turned down the European expansion. I've restructured my entire schedule. After the damage was done, Leah interrupted softly. Grant, you made those changes because you got scared, not because you realized I mattered. There's a difference. She resumed packing, her movements deliberate and final. I'm going to the hospital tomorrow. I'm going to spend the next 4 months focused on keeping our children safe and healthy. After they're born, after I recover, we can discuss what comes next. What does that mean? Leah folded a robe and placed it carefully in her suitcase. It means I'm not making any decisions about our marriage while I'm carrying your children and dependent on your insurance. It means we both have 4 months to figure out who we really are and what we really want. Grant felt panic rising in his chest. Leah, I know what I want. I want our family. I want to fix this. 4 months, Grant. She closed the suitcase with a soft click. 4 months to prove that you want us more than you want to win. The next morning, Grant drove Leah to Hartford Hospital in silence. Her overnight bag sat in the back seat next to a small photo album Emma had made, pictures of their relationship from the beginning, when Grant used to surprise Leah with weekend trips and handwritten notes when she used to wait up for him no matter how late his meetings ran. The maternity ward was quieter than Grant had expected. Private room 314 was spacious and comfortable, with windows overlooking a garden and enough space for a small sofa where family could stay overnight. Grant watched Leah settle into the hospital bed, already looking more relaxed than she had in weeks. Dr. Martinez stopped by with the nursing team to review the monitoring schedule. We'll check on you 3 times daily, ultrasounds twice a week, and immediate intervention if anything changes. The goal is to get you to at least 32 weeks, ideally 36. After the medical team left, Grant and Leah sat in awkward silence. The hospital room felt like a metaphor for their relationship. Everything necessary for survival, nothing resembling a home. "I should go," Grant said finally. "Let you rest." Leah nodded from her hospital bed, looking small and isolated despite the comfortable surroundings. "Grant, thank you for taking care of everything. The insurance, the room, the doctors. I know you're trying." He paused at the door, wanting to say something that would bridge the distance between them, but finding no words adequate for the damage he had caused. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said instead. As Grant walked down the hospital corridor, he passed other couples in various stages of pregnancy journeys. Some looked tired but connected, hands intertwined as they navigated challenges together. Others argued in low voices about practical concerns while maintaining physical closeness. He and Leah looked like strangers who happened to share the same medical crisis. 4 months stretched ahead of him, 4 months to prove he could be the man she needed, the father their children deserved, and the husband she had married before ambition convinced him that love could wait for a more convenient time. 2 months into Leah's hospitalization, Grant had developed a routine that would have been unrecognizable to his former self. Every morning at 7 a.m., he arrived at Hartford Hospital with fresh coffee from Leah's favorite downtown cafe and whatever book she had mentioned wanting to read. He stayed for 3 hours, worked from the hospital's business center during lunch, returned for evening visiting hours, and went home to an empty house that felt like a museum of their failed marriage. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. The first week, Grant had treated the hospital visits like business meetings, arriving precisely on time, discussing practical matters about the pregnancy and finances, leaving when visiting hours ended. Leah had been polite but distant, answering his questions about her comfort and medical needs while maintaining an emotional wall that felt impenetrable. The breakthrough came during his second week when Grant arrived to find Leah crying over a movie playing on her iPad. Not the gentle tears of pregnancy hormones, but the deep sobs of someone who had been holding back emotion for too long. "What's wrong?" he had asked, immediately scanning the room for signs of medical emergency. "Nothing's wrong," Leah had managed between tears. "It's just this movie." The couple gets separated by war and he spends years trying to get back to her, and when he finally does, she gestured helplessly at the screen. Grant had looked at the iPad displaying a classic romance he dimly remembered from years ago. "Do you want me to turn it off?" "No," Leah had said, wiping her eyes. "I want you to watch it with me. I want to remember what it feels like when someone fights for love instead of running away from it." So Grant had pulled his chair closer to her hospital bed, and they had watched the rest of the movie in silence, both thinking about different kinds of wars and different kinds of separation. Now, 8 weeks later, they had developed an unexpected rhythm. Grant had discovered that Leah was working on a photography project from her hospital bed, documenting other expectant mothers in the maternity ward, capturing moments of hope and fear and anticipation. Her laptop was filled with portraits that revealed the depth of talent she had set aside when she became Mrs. Grant Holloway. "This one is incredible," Grant said, studying a black and white photo of a young couple holding their first ultrasound image. "The way you captured their expression, you can see their entire future in their faces." Leah looked up from editing another shot. "Photography was always my real passion. Before marketing, before everything else. I didn't know that." Grant realized how much he didn't know about the woman he had married. "Why didn't you ever mention it?" "You were building an empire," Leah said simply. "My little creative dreams seemed insignificant compared to billion-dollar deals." Grant felt the familiar stab of guilt, but also something new, genuine curiosity about the person Leah had been before she adapted herself to fit his lifestyle. "Show me more." For the next hour, Leah walked him through her portfolio, explaining her artistic choices and the stories behind each image. Grant found himself fascinated not just by her talent, but by the way her entire demeanor changed when she talked about her work. This was the woman he had fallen in love with, passionate, creative, fully alive. "Dr. Martinez says the babies are responding well to reduced stress," Leah mentioned as she saved her latest edits. "All 3 are growing consistently now, even baby C." That's incredible news. Grant had memorized every detail of their weekly ultrasounds, could identify each baby's position and approximate size. "When can we find out the genders?" "Next week, if you want to know." Leah looked at him carefully. "Do you want to know?" The question carried weight beyond gender reveals. It was asking whether Grant wanted to be involved in the details, whether he was present for the real experience or just managing the logistics. "Yes," Grant said without hesitation. I want to know everything. I want to help choose names, pick out cribs, plan the nursery. I want to be part of all of it. Something shifted in Leah's expression, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement that his words carried genuine intention. Their conversation was interrupted by Emma's arrival with dinner from Leah's favorite Italian restaurant. Emma had maintained her role as Leah's primary emotional support, though her interactions with Grant had evolved from barely concealed hostility to cautious neutrality. "How are our three troublemakers today?" Emma asked, settling into the chair beside Leah's bed with practiced ease. "Active," Leah laughed, her hand on her expanding belly, especially during the ultrasound this morning. Baby B was doing gymnastics. Grant watched the easy intimacy between the sisters, the way Emma intuitively knew what Leah needed before she asked. It was a reminder of how thoroughly he had abdicated his role as Leah's partner, forcing others to fill the void his absence had created. "Emma," Grant said suddenly, "thank you for being here when I wasn't, for taking care of her when He struggled to find words adequate for his failure. Emma studied his face for a long moment. "Leah needed someone to show up, Grant. The question is whether you've learned the difference between showing up and just being present." After Emma left, Grant and Leah sat in comfortable silence as twilight settled outside the hospital windows. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and Grant found himself thinking about the view from his Beijing hotel room, spectacular and meaningless compared to this moment beside his wife. "Grant," Leah said softly, "can I ask you something? Anything. What changed? I mean, really changed? Because turning down business deals isn't the same as becoming a different person." Grant considered her question seriously. I think I had to lose everything to realize what everything actually meant. When I was in that hotel room reading your messages about the hospital, about complications, about possibly losing you or the babies, all those billions of dollars felt like monopoly money." He leaned forward, meeting her eyes. "I spent 15 years building a fortune so I could give you the world. But I was so focused on getting the world that I forgot you just wanted me." Leah's expression softened slightly. "I never wanted the world, Grant. I wanted a partner. Someone who chose to be present for the small moments, not just the crises. I know that now." Grant reached for her hand, and for the first time in months, she didn't pull away. "I'm not asking you to forgive me or trust me or make any decisions about our future. I'm just asking for the chance to show you who I am when I'm not running away." Leah looked down at their joined hands, her thumb unconsciously tracing across his knuckles. "The babies are due in 10 weeks. After that, you decide what comes next," Grant finished. "No pressure, no expectations. Just let me try to be the man you needed me to be all along." Outside their window, Hartford's skyline glittered with promise and possibility. Inside room 314, two people who had almost lost each other sat holding hands in the quiet darkness, 3 heartbeats growing stronger between them, and the faintest possibility that some things could be rebuilt from the ground up. The ultrasound technician smiled as she moved the wand across Leah's belly, now prominently rounded at 30 weeks. Grant sat beside the hospital bed, holding Leah's hand as they watched 3 distinct figures moving on the monitor, a ritual that had become sacred to both of them over the past month. 2 girls and a boy, Dr. Martinez announced with satisfaction, all growing beautifully now. Baby C has caught up significantly in size. Grant felt tears he didn't try to hide. "Did you hear that?" he whispered to Leah. 2 daughters and a son. Leah squeezed his hand, her own eyes bright with emotion. "I heard. They're really going to be okay, aren't they?" "More than okay," Dr. Martinez said, printing copies of the ultrasound images. "If we can get you to 34 weeks, which looks very promising now, they'll have excellent outcomes." After the medical team left, Grant and Leah sat studying the new ultrasound photos. The images were clearer now, showing tiny fingers and the curve of their children's spines. Real people, waiting to meet them. "We need to talk about names," Leah said, organizing the photos in the album they had been building together. "And the nursery, and about a million other things." Grant pulled out his phone and showed her the design plans he had been working on. "I hired an interior designer, but I wanted your approval for everything. 3 cribs arranged so we can reach all of them easily. A rocking chair by the window where you used to sit and read. Built-in storage for all the things Emma keeps insisting we'll need." Leah studied the designs, touched by details she hadn't expected. "You remembered the reading chair." "I remember a lot of things I forgot I noticed," Grant admitted. "Like how you always curled up there with your coffee on Sunday mornings, or how you hummed while you cooked. Or the way you used to leave little notes in my briefcase when I traveled. I stopped doing that. I know, I stopped reading them, so you stopped writing them. Grant looked down at their joined hands. I want to deserve those notes again. Their conversation was interrupted by Leah's sharp intake of breath and her hand flying to her belly. Her expression shifted from surprise to concern as she pressed her hands against her stomach. What's wrong? Grant was on his feet immediately, reaching for the call button. Something feels different, like pressure, but lower than usual. Leah's face had gone pale. Grant, I think we should call the nurse. Within minutes, Dr. Martinez was back with the nursing team, attaching monitors and checking Leah's vital signs. Grant stood against the wall, feeling helpless as medical professionals swarmed around his wife. Mrs. Holloway, you're having contractions, Dr. Martinez said calmly. They're mild right now, but we need to stop them. At 30 weeks, we want these babies to stay put for at least a few more weeks. Grant watched in growing panic as they administered medication and adjusted Leah's position, hooking her up to additional monitors that tracked both her vital signs and the baby's heartbeats. The steady beeping that had become background noise in their daily hospital routine suddenly felt ominous. Is she going to be okay? Grant asked Dr. Martinez quietly. Are the babies okay? We caught it early. The medication should stop the contractions, but this means complete bed rest. No sitting up for more than a few minutes at a time. We're looking at high-risk territory now. For the next 6 hours, Grant didn't leave Leah's side. He held her hand through waves of medication-induced nausea, helped her sip water when her mouth went dry, and tried to project calm while his mind raced through every possible catastrophic outcome. Grant, Leah said weakly around midnight, when the contractions had finally stopped and her vital signs had stabilized. I'm scared. It was the first time she had admitted vulnerability to him since his return, and Grant felt the weight of her trust like a physical thing. I'm scared too, but you're the strongest person I know and they have the best doctors here. We're going to get through this. Leah studied his face in the dim light of the monitors. When I was having those contractions, all I could think about was how much I wanted you here. Not just physically here, but really here, present for this. I am here, Grant said fiercely. I'm not going anywhere. Not for any meeting, not for any deal, not for anything. Even if the Singapore investors call about the merger extension? Grant looked confused. What merger extension? Jennifer called this afternoon while you were getting coffee. She said the Singapore team wants to restart negotiations. Bigger numbers than before. Leah watched his expression carefully. She said they're only giving you 48 hours to respond. Grant felt a familiar tug of adrenaline at the mention of the deal. Billions of dollars, career-defining opportunities. The kind of success that had once driven every decision he made. Then he looked at Leah, pale and exhausted in her hospital bed, carrying their 3 children while fighting to keep them safe. Tell them I'm not available, Grant said without hesitation. Tell them I'm exactly where I need to be. Leah's eyes filled with tears. That deal could set you up for life, Grant. It's everything you worked for. No. Grant leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. This is everything I worked for. This room, this moment, the chance to be here when you need me. The money was supposed to make our life better, not replace it. Something fundamental shifted in Leah's expression. Not forgiveness, but recognition. For the first time since his return, she looked at him without the careful guardedness that had protected her from further disappointment. The contractions really scared me, she admitted. Not just for the babies, but I realized I didn't want to go through any of this without you. Even after everything that's happened, even with all the hurt between us, I still want you here. Grant felt his chest tighten with emotion. I want to be here. Not because I have to be, not because it's the right thing to do, but because there's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be than beside you, helping you bring our children into the world safely. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the steady rhythm of 3 heartbeats on the monitors. Outside, Hartford was quiet, except for the occasional ambulance or late-night traffic. Inside room 314, 2 people who had nearly lost everything were slowly finding their way back to each other. Grant? Leah said softly. Yeah? When this is all over, when the babies are born and we're all okay, I think I'd like to try couples counseling. Not to fix what we had, but to build something new. Grant brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. I'd like that too. I'd like to build something new with you. Something better than what we had before. The monitors continued their steady beeping, 3 heartbeats growing stronger in the darkness, and for the first time in months, both Grant and Leah fell asleep with hope for tomorrow. At 34 weeks, Leah had surpassed every medical expectation. The contractions had been controlled with medication. The babies were thriving, and Dr. Martinez spoke optimistically about reaching 36 weeks, the threshold for significantly reduced complications. Grant had practically moved into the hospital, sleeping on the fold-out chair beside Leah's bed and conducting essential business calls from the family lounge down the hall. The nursery at home was complete. Grant had installed a baby monitor system that would alert them to any sound from any of the 3 cribs, positioned rocking chairs for middle-of-the-night feedings, and filled the room with soft toys that Leah had chosen from online catalogs during her hospital stay. They had names picked out: Charlotte Grace, Benjamin James, and Isabella Rose. Names that felt both classic and meaningful to both of them. "Look at this," Leah said, showing Grant her latest photography project on her laptop. "I've been documenting our journey through ultrasound photos, hospital moments, even some of you sleeping in that terrible chair." Grant studied the black and white images she had assembled, a visual story of their family coming together against all odds. There was one photo of his hands holding the ultrasound images, another of Leah's silhouette against the hospital window, and several candid shots of their conversations during the long days and nights in room 314. "These are incredible," Grant said, genuinely moved. "You should exhibit these. This kind of raw emotion, this honesty about pregnancy and marriage and almost losing everything. People need to see this." Leah looked surprised. "You really think so? I think you're an artist, and I think I spent so many years focused on my own ambitions that I never encouraged yours." Grant scrolled through more images, seeing their story through her eyes. "After the babies are born, I want to help you set up a proper studio. Gallery shows, client work, whatever you want to pursue. Grant, we don't need to make big plans right now." "Yes, we do." Grant set the laptop aside and took her hands. "We need to make plans for a life where both of our dreams matter, where your art isn't a hobby that fits around my schedule, but a career that we support equally." Leah studied his face, looking for traces of the man who had once dismissed her interests as insignificant. "What about your work? You can't just abandon everything you've built." "I'm not abandoning it. I'm reorganizing it. I've been talking to headhunters about bringing in a partner, someone who can handle the international deals and travel while I focus on domestic markets." Grant had been planning this restructuring for weeks, realizing that success meant nothing if it cost him his family. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Emma entered with a bouquet of flowers and her usual cheerful energy, though Grant noticed she looked tired. "How are our 3 troublemakers today?" Emma asked, settling into her familiar chair. "Active," Leah laughed. "Charlotte has been doing somersaults all morning, and Benjamin seems determined to kick his way out early." Emma smiled, but Grant caught something in her expression, a hesitation that was unusual for Leah's typically straightforward sister. "Emma, what's wrong?" Leah asked, noticing the same thing. Emma glanced between them, clearly struggling with something. "I didn't want to worry you, especially with everything going so well, but David and I got some news yesterday." David was Emma's husband of 8 years, a kind man who worked as a high school principal and treated Leah like his own sister. "What kind of news?" Grant asked, feeling protective instincts he didn't fully understand. "He's been having some health issues. Chest pains, fatigue. We thought it was stress from work, but the cardiologist found some blockages. He needs bypass surgery probably within the next few weeks." Leah gasped, her hand moving instinctively to her belly. "Emma, why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because you're carrying 3 babies and dealing with enough stress already. But I wanted you to know because, well, I might not be as available after the babies are born. David's recovery is going to be pretty intensive." Grant watched the conversation unfold, seeing how Emma's news affected Leah. Emma had been her constant support through the pregnancy, the person Leah depended on when Grant had been absent. Now that support system was threatened just as they approached the most crucial weeks. "What can we do?" Grant asked immediately. "Best cardiologist, private room, whatever he needs." Emma looked surprised by his offer. "Grant, you don't need to." "Yes, I do." Grant's voice was firm. "David is family. You both are. And you've been taking care of Leah when I should have been. Let me take care of this." Leah reached for Emma's hand, tears in her eyes. "We'll figure it out. Grant's right. We'll make sure David gets the best care, and we'll manage with the babies." "Actually," Grant said slowly, an idea forming, "I have a different proposal. What if, after the babies are born, you and David stayed with us for a few months? Our house has plenty of room. We'll need help with 3 newborns anyway. and it would let David recover in a comfortable environment while you're still close to support Leah. Both women stared at him in surprise. The old Grant would never have suggested extended house guests, especially during such a chaotic time. Grant, that's incredibly generous, but 3 newborns and a cardiac recovery patient? Emma shook her head. That's too much for anyone to handle. No, Leah said quietly. It's not. It's what families do. They support each other through the hard times. She looked at Grant with something approaching wonder. Are you sure about this? Grant thought about the massive, empty house that had felt like a mausoleum during Leah's hospitalization. The idea of filling it with family, with people who cared about each other, with the chaos and love of new babies and healing relationships, felt like exactly what they all needed. I'm sure we'll hire additional help for the medical care David needs, but I want you both there. I want our children to grow up knowing what it means to take care of family. Emma wiped away tears she'd been holding back. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Leah urged. Say you'll let us help you the way you've helped us. The conversation was interrupted by a sudden, sharp pain that made Leah gasp and grab her stomach. Unlike the previous contractions, this one was immediate and intense. Oh, Leah breathed, her face going pale. Oh, that was different. Grant was on his feet immediately, reaching for the call button, but before he could press it, Leah's water broke in a dramatic gush that soaked the hospital bed. Grant, Leah said, her voice tight with pain and excitement. I think it's time. Within seconds, the room filled with medical personnel. Dr. Martinez appeared as if by magic, checking Leah's cervix while nurses prepared equipment and checked fetal monitors. Looks like our 3 little ones have decided they're ready to meet the world, Dr. Martinez announced. Mrs. Holloway, you're already 5 centimeters dilated and progressing quickly. We're going to have some babies today. Grant felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration unlike anything he had ever experienced. After months of waiting, planning, and healing, their children were coming. He grabbed Leah's hand as another contraction hit, stronger than the first. Are you ready for this? He asked her, his voice filled with awe and love. Leah squeezed his hand, her face flushed with pain and anticipation. I've been ready for months. The question is, are you ready to become a father of 3? Grant looked into her eyes, seeing the woman he had fallen in love with, the mother of his children, the person he had almost lost through his own blindness and ambition. With you, I'm ready for anything. The delivery room buzzed with controlled chaos. 3 neonatal teams stood ready, each equipped for immediate intervention if needed. Grant had never seen so many medical professionals in one place, all focused on bringing their 3 children safely into the world. Okay, Leah, with the next contraction, I need you to push, Dr. Martinez instructed from her position between Leah's legs. Baby A is crowning beautifully. Grant held Leah's hand, feeling her grip tighten as another wave of pain rolled through her body. After 6 hours of increasingly intense labor, she was exhausted, but determined. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her usually perfect hair was matted against her scalp. But Grant had never seen her look more beautiful or more powerful. I can see the head, Grant exclaimed, catching his first glimpse of their daughter. Leah, she's almost here. Leah bore down with everything she had, and suddenly, Charlotte Gray slipped into the world with a lusty cry that filled the delivery room. Doctor, Martinez quickly placed the baby on Leah's chest for a brief moment before the neonatal team took over, checking vitals and clearing airways. She's perfect, the neonatologist called out. Good color, strong cry, breathing well. Grant felt tears streaming down his face as he watched his daughter, their daughter, being examined and weighed. Charlotte, he whispered, welcome to the world, sweetheart. But they had little time to savor the moment. Baby B was ready to make his entrance. Here we go again, Dr. Martinez said. This little guy seems eager to meet his sister. Benjamin James arrived 12 minutes after Charlotte, smaller than his sister but equally vocal. Grant watched in amazement as their son was placed briefly on Leah's chest, his tiny fist waving indignantly at the bright lights and cold air. 2 down, 1 to go, the nurse announced cheerfully. How are you feeling, Mom? Leah was breathing heavily, clearly exhausted from delivering 2 babies, but her eyes were bright with joy and adrenaline. I'm okay. Is Isabella ready? Isabella Rose, however, had different plans. After her siblings' relatively straightforward deliveries, she seemed content to stay exactly where she was. Dr. Martinez frowned slightly as she examined Leah. Baby C is in a slightly different position than we'd like, she explained calmly. She's sideways instead of head down. We're going to try to turn her manually, but if that doesn't work, we may need to do an emergency C-section for this last delivery. Grant felt his heart rate spike. They had come so far, overcome so much, and now at the final moment there were complications. Is she okay? Is Leah okay? Grant asked, trying to keep the panic out of his voice. Both are fine right now, Dr. Martinez assured him, but we need to get Isabella out soon. Leah, I need you to try to relax while I attempt to reposition the baby. Grant watched helplessly as Dr. Martinez worked to manipulate Isabella's position from the outside, pressing on Leah's belly in ways that were clearly uncomfortable. Leah gritted her teeth, gripping Grant's hand so tightly he thought she might break his fingers. Talk to me, Leah gasped between waves of pain. Tell me something, anything. Grant leaned close to her ear, his voice steady despite his racing heart. I'm thinking about 6 months from now when all 3 of them are sleeping through the night, hopefully, and we're sitting in our living room, completely exhausted but happy. Charlotte will probably be the leader, organizing her siblings from day one. Benjamin will be the gentle one, the peacemaker. And Isabella, he glanced toward the monitors tracking their stubborn daughter's heartbeat. Isabella will be the one who does everything on her own terms. Despite her pain, Leah managed a weak smile. Just like her mother. Just like her mother. Grant agreed, kissing her forehead. Got her, Dr. Martinez announced suddenly. She's turned. Isabella is ready to join her siblings. The final delivery was the most intense yet. Isabella seemed determined to make her arrival as dramatic as possible, requiring 3 strong pushes from Leah before finally sliding into the world. Unlike her siblings' immediate cries, Isabella was silent for several terrifying seconds before letting out a wail that was somehow both indignant and victorious. And that's our fighter, Grant laughed through his tears as Isabella was placed on Leah's chest. Isabella rose, you certainly know how to make an entrance. For the first time in hours, the delivery room became calm. All 3 babies were breathing well, crying lustily, and showing excellent vital signs. The neonatal teams worked efficiently to clean them up, weigh them, and perform initial assessments while Grant and Leah watched in wonder. Charlotte is 6 pounds, 2 ounces, the first nurse announced. Benjamin is 5 pounds, 14 ounces, and Isabella is 6 pounds even. Excellent weights for triplets at 34 weeks. Dr. Martinez finished delivering the placentas and began the process of cleaning up from the delivery. Leah, you did phenomenally well. All 3 babies are healthy. You're healthy, and frankly, this is one of the smoothest triplet deliveries I've supervised. Grant couldn't stop staring at the 3 bassinets where his children lay, each baby swaddled in soft blankets, their tiny faces peaceful now that they had finished protesting their eviction from the warmth of Leah's womb. Can we hold them? Leah asked weakly. All of them? The nurses arranged pillows around Leah so she could safely hold 2 babies at once, while Grant cradled Isabella against his chest. The moment was surreal. After months of preparation, worry, and anticipation, their family was finally complete and physically present in the same room. Look what we made, Leah whispered, gazing down at Charlotte and Benjamin nestled against her. Grant, look what we made together. Grant couldn't speak for a moment, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had accomplished. These 3 tiny humans were theirs to protect, to love, to guide through life. The responsibility felt enormous and perfect at the same time. I'm sorry, he said suddenly, his voice thick with emotion. Leah looked up at him in surprise. Sorry for what? For not being here from the beginning. For missing so much of the pregnancy. For making you go through the fear and complications alone. For almost losing this. Grant gestured to encompass their little family. For almost losing us. Leah studied his face, seeing the depth of his regret and genuine transformation. Grant, you're here now. You've been here when it mattered most. That's what I'm going to remember. Isabella stirred in Grant's arms, her tiny hand escaping from the swaddling to wave freely. Without thinking, Grant offered her his finger, and she grasped it with surprising strength. Hello, Isabella, he whispered. I'm your daddy, and I promise you I'm not going anywhere ever again. As if responding to his voice, Isabella's eyes opened briefly, revealing the dark blue of newborns that would eventually settle into their permanent color. In that moment, Grant felt something shift inside him permanently, a reordering of priorities so fundamental that his old self seemed like a stranger. Dr. Martinez, Leah called softly, when can we take them home? If they continue to thrive like this, probably in about a week. We want to make sure their feeding is established and they're gaining weight consistently. Dr. Martinez smiled at the scene of new parents completely absorbed in their children. Take some time to rest now. The next few months are going to be an adventure. As the medical teams finished their work and left the family alone, Grant and Leah sat in comfortable silence, each holding their children and processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. We did it, Leah said finally. We actually did it. Grant looked at his wife, exhausted, beautiful, and stronger than he had ever imagined possible, holding 2 of their 3 children while he cradled the 3rd. No, he said softly. You did it. You carried them. You protected them. You brought them safely into the world. I just had the privilege of being here to witness it. Outside the hospital windows, Hartford continued its daily rhythm, unaware that 3 new lives had just begun their journey. Inside the recovery room, a family that had nearly been destroyed by ambition and absence had been reborn through love, forgiveness, and the simple miracle of being present for the moments that mattered most. 6 weeks later, Grant sat in his home office at 3 a.m., holding Benjamin while Charlotte and Isabella slept peacefully in their bassinets nearby. The house that had once felt like a monument to his success now pulsed with the chaotic rhythm of new life, baby cries, feeding schedules, and the constant background hum of love and exhaustion. Leah was finally getting a solid stretch of sleep after a particularly difficult night when all 3 babies had seemed determined to take turns fussing. Emma and David were settling into the guest wing nicely. David's recovery from bypass surgery was progressing well, and Emma's help with the babies had been invaluable. Grant's laptop sat open on his desk, showing emails from business partners around the world. The Singapore deal had indeed fallen through when he declined to participate, but surprisingly, Grant felt no regret. In its place, smaller domestic deals had materialized, profitable opportunities that didn't require months away from home. Benjamin stirred in his arms, making the soft snuffling sounds that usually preceded either contentment or a demand for food. Grant checked his watch and realized it was almost feeding time anyway. What do you think, buddy? Grant whispered to his son. Should we let Mommy sleep a little longer? He had become unexpectedly competent at bottle preparation, diaper changes, and the delicate art of burping babies without waking their siblings. Fatherhood had turned out to be nothing like he had imagined, more exhausting but also more fulfilling than any business achievement. As he prepared Benjamin's bottle in the kitchen, Grant's phone buzzed with a text message. Without thinking, he glanced at the screen and felt his blood freeze. The message was from his old assistant Jennifer, sent to what must have been an entire contact list. Cleaning out digital files and found some unsent drafts. Thought you might want to see this before I delete everything. Attached was a screenshot of a draft email from Grant's account, dated 8 months ago, the day he had sent Leah the divorce papers. The draft had never been sent, but the content made Grant's hands shake as he read it. Leah, I know this message will hurt you and I'm a coward for sending it instead of calling, but I've been thinking during these months away, and I realize we want different things. You want a partner who comes home every night, who prioritizes family over opportunity. I want to build something that matters, even if it costs me everything else. I thought I could have both, but I can't. I'm not the husband you need, and pretending otherwise is unfair to both of us. The pregnancy was a surprise we never planned for, and honestly, I'm not ready to be a father. I may never be ready. You deserve someone who chooses you first, always. I'm sorry I can't be that man. Grant stared at the words he had written but never sent, words that revealed how close he had come to walking away from everything that now made his life meaningful. The man who had drafted that message felt like a stranger, someone driven by such profound selfishness that Grant could barely comprehend his former mindset. Benjamin's cry interrupted his shock. Grant quickly finished preparing the bottle and returned to his son, settling into the rocking chair that had become his favorite piece of furniture in the entire house. As Benjamin fed contentedly, Grant found himself thinking about timing and grace and second chances. If Jennifer had sent that draft 8 months ago, if Leah had seen his true thoughts about their pregnancy and marriage, their story would have ended very differently. There would have been no hospital vigil, no reconciliation, no moment when he held his newborn daughter and felt his entire worldview shift. You saved me, Grant whispered to Benjamin, whose dark eyes were fixed on his father's face with the intense concentration babies brought to feeding time. All of you saved me from becoming someone I wouldn't have been able to live with. Footsteps on the stairs announced Leah's approach. She appeared in the doorway wearing the soft robe Grant had bought her for the hospital, her hair mussed from sleep, but her face peaceful in a way that had become familiar again over the past few weeks. How long has he been up? She asked softly, settling into the chair beside Grant. About 20 minutes. I thought I'd let you sleep through this feeding. Grant shifted Benjamin to his shoulder for burping, the movement now automatic after weeks of practice. Leah studied Grant's face in the dim light from the hallway. You look like you've seen a ghost. Everything okay? Grant hesitated, then showed her his phone with Jennifer's message and the attached draft. This is what I almost sent you instead of the divorce papers. Jennifer found it in my drafts folder. Leah read the message slowly, her expression unreadable. Grant watched her process words that revealed just how close he had come to abandoning their marriage and their unborn children. Grant, she said finally, her voice very quiet. This is what you were really thinking? Yes. Grant met her eyes directly. That's who I was 8 months ago. Someone who thought success mattered more than love, who was terrified of being responsible for other people's happiness, who convinced himself that wanting to achieve something meant he couldn't also want to be present for his family. Leah was silent for a long moment, processing the revelation. Why didn't you send it? Honestly, I don't remember. Maybe some part of me knew it wasn't true even then. Maybe I was just coward enough to choose the divorce papers instead because they felt more businesslike. Grant adjusted Benjamin against his shoulder, grateful for the solid weight of his son in his arms. I'm glad I didn't send it, but I'm also glad you're seeing it now. I want you to know exactly how far I've come. Leah reached over and took the phone from Grant, reading the draft message again. The man who wrote this. He's not the man who's been feeding our son at 3 a.m. for the past 6 weeks. No, he's not. Grant looked around their living room, taking in the baby swings, the burp cloths draped over every surface, the photo albums Leah had been creating to document their children's first weeks of life. That man thought love was something that happened when it was convenient. This man knows love is something you choose every day, especially when it's inconvenient. Benjamin had fallen back to sleep against Grant's shoulder, completely trusting and content. In the neighboring bassinets, Charlotte and Isabella slept peacefully, their tiny chests rising and falling in perfect rhythm. I forgave you months ago, Leah said suddenly. But reading this, I think I needed to see how much you've actually changed. Not just in your actions, but in your understanding of what matters. Grant felt tears he didn't try to hide. Do you know what the strangest part is? I spent 15 years trying to build something that would last, something significant. But the most important thing I'll ever create is sleeping in this room right now. Leah stood and moved to Grant's chair, settling carefully on the arm so she could look down at Benjamin's peaceful face. The 3 most important things, she corrected gently. 4, Grant said, looking up at her. The 3 most important things I'll ever help create, and the 1 most important thing I almost lost. Leah leaned down and kissed the top of Grant's head, a gesture of tenderness that felt like a benediction. We should go back to bed. Charlotte will be up in an hour for her feeding, and Isabella usually follows about 20 minutes after that. Grant carefully transferred Benjamin to his bassinet, then followed Leah toward the stairs. At the doorway, he turned back to look at their 3 children sleeping safely in the room he had designed with such care and attention to detail. 8 months ago, he had been a man preparing to walk away from responsibilities he thought would limit his potential. Now he was a father who couldn't imagine finding meaning anywhere outside this house, this family, this life built on presence rather than achievement. Leah, he said softly as they climbed the stairs together. Thank you for giving me the chance to become someone worth forgiving. She slipped her hand into his, their fingers intertwining automatically. Thank you for becoming him. In their bedroom, Grant set his phone on the nightstand without deleting Jennifer's message. He wanted to remember how close he had come to losing everything that mattered, wanted the reminder of who he never wanted to become again. As they settled back into bed, Leah curled against Grant's side in a gesture that had become natural again over the past few weeks. Grant, she murmured, already half asleep. Yeah? I love who you are now. Not who you were, not who you're trying to become. Who you are right now at this moment. Grant held his wife close, listening to the soft sounds of their children breathing in the room next door, and felt a contentment deeper than any success he had ever achieved in the corporate world. He had spent years chasing a fortune so he could give Leah everything she wanted. In the end, he discovered that everything she wanted was simply him, present, committed, and choosing their family above all else. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can give someone is not what money can buy, but what presence can offer. And presence, Grant had learned, was a choice you made every single day. 3 years later, Grant stood in the backyard of their Connecticut home, watching Charlotte organize an elaborate tea party for her stuffed animals, while Benjamin carefully arranged blocks in perfect geometric patterns. Isabella, true to the personality she had displayed from birth, had abandoned the structured activities entirely in favor of digging in the garden with her bare hands, her dress already streaked with soil, despite it being only 10 a.m. "Charlotte, you're being bossy again," Benjamin said mildly, not looking up from his block tower. "I'm not bossy. I'm helpful," Charlotte replied with the dignity of a 3-year-old who had clearly inherited her father's leadership instincts and her mother's certainty about being right. Grant smiled, recognizing himself in Charlotte's need to organize everyone around her and Leah's quiet confidence in Benjamin's gentle correction. Isabella represented something entirely new, a wild card who approached life with fearless curiosity and complete disregard for anyone else's plans. "Daddy, look!" Isabella called from her position half buried in the rose bed. "I found a worm and he's my friend now." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Grant called back, not bothering to worry about the dirt or the potential garden damage. 3 years of fatherhood had taught him to choose his battles, and Isabella's relationship with nature was not a battle worth fighting. Leah appeared on the back porch, carrying a tray of sandwiches and looking impossibly beautiful, despite the organized chaos that defined their daily life. Her photography career had flourished beyond either of their expectations. Her exhibition documenting their journey from near divorce to triplet parents had been featured in galleries across New England, and she now had more client work than she could handle. "Lunch is ready," she called, then paused to take in the scene. Charlotte's elaborate tea party setup, Benjamin's architectural achievement with his blocks, and Isabella emerging from the garden like a small, happy earth spirit. Grant walked over to help her with the tray, stopping to kiss her cheek in the casual way that had become natural again. "How's the Henderson family portrait coming along?" "Finished editing this morning. 5 kids under 8, and somehow I managed to get at least one shot where everyone is looking at the camera and smiling." Leah set the tray on the outdoor table they had installed, specifically for family meals during good weather. "What about your conference call with the Portland investors?" "Postponed until tonight after the kids are in bed," Grant said without any trace of resentment. "They're on West Coast time anyway, so it works better for everyone." This was the new rhythm of Grant's professional life. He had indeed brought in a partner to handle international markets while he focused on domestic investments that didn't require extensive travel. The company was smaller than it might have been if he had continued on his original trajectory, but it was also more sustainable and infinitely more compatible with family life. Emma appeared from the house, carrying David's water bottle and a book. David's recovery had been complete, though he had taken early retirement from his principal position to spend more time writing, something he had always wanted to pursue but had never found time for during his education career. "Uncle David is napping again," Emma announced with fond exasperation. "The man has turned into a professional sleeper since his retirement. He deserves it," Leah said firmly. 30 years of dealing with teenagers would exhaust anyone. Grant watched his extended family settle into their outdoor lunch routine, Emma helping Charlotte serve her stuffed animals, Benjamin carefully dividing his sandwich into equal geometric portions, Isabella abandoning the garden to wash her hands in the outdoor sink they had installed specifically for her post-adventure cleanups. This house that had once felt empty and formal now overflowed with the kind of life Grant hadn't known he was missing. Not just the children, but Emma and David, frequent visits from Leah's parents, friends from the photography world, other parents from the children's activities, neighbors who had become genuine friends rather than mere acquaintances. "Daddy," Charlotte said, settling beside Grant with her carefully arranged plate. "Mrs. Peterson says her daddy travels all the time for work and she misses him lots." Grant's chest tightened slightly. Mrs. Peterson was Charlotte's friend from preschool, and Grant knew her father was a consultant who spent most of his time on the road, not unlike Grant himself 3 years ago. "That must be hard for both of them," Grant said carefully. "What did you tell her?" "I told her my daddy used to travel lots too, but now he stays home because home is more important than work." Out of the mouths of babes. Grant caught Leah's eye across the table, seeing her gentle smile at their daughter's matter-of-fact summary of their family's transformation. "Is that what you remember, sweetheart? That I used to travel a lot?" Charlotte considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. "I don't really remember before, but Mommy showed me pictures where you looked sad and far away, even when you were right here. Now you look happy and close even when you're working in your office." Grant felt the familiar wave of gratitude for second chances, for the opportunity to become the father his children would remember, rather than the father he might have been. After lunch, while the children napped and Emma read in the garden, Grant and Leah found themselves alone in their bedroom, a rare occurrence that they had learned to treasure. "I got a call from Jennifer this morning," Grant said, settling beside Leah on their bed. "She's pregnant with her second baby and wanted to thank us again for the referral to Dr. Martinez." Jennifer had left Grant's company 6 months after his return from Asia, choosing to pursue a career with better work-life balance after watching Grant's transformation. She was now a successful project manager for a nonprofit organization and, according to her updates, much happier than she had ever been in the corporate world. "That's wonderful news," Leah said, curling against Grant's side. "Dr. Martinez will take great care of her." They lay in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of their household. Emma's quiet laughter as she talked to David through the open window, the distant noise of neighborhood children playing, the peaceful absence of crying that meant all 3 of their own children were successfully napping. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if things had gone differently?" Leah asked softly. Grant knew she was thinking about the draft message, the divorce papers, the pregnancy complications, the business deals he had chosen to abandon. "Sometimes, but mostly I think about how grateful I am that they didn't." He turned to face her, studying the woman who had somehow found the strength to forgive him for almost destroying everything that mattered. "Do you regret anything? The way things turned out, I mean? The smaller house, the different lifestyle, the chaos of 3 toddlers?" Leah was quiet for a moment, considering his question seriously. "I regret the pain we went through to get here. I regret the months of feeling alone and scared. But the life we have now?" She gestured toward the window where the sounds of their family drifted up from the garden. "This is exactly what I always wanted. Not the money or the status or the big house, though I like those things too, but the presence, the choice to be here, with us, every day." Grant pulled her closer, thinking about the man he used to be and the man he had chosen to become. The transformation hadn't been easy or automatic. It had required daily decisions to prioritize differently, to restructure his entire understanding of success, to choose connection over achievement repeatedly until the choice became natural. "I love our life," he said simply. "So do I." Leah smiled against his shoulder, chaos and all. A crash from downstairs announced that nap time was officially over, followed by Isabella's voice calling, "Mommy! Daddy! I didn't break anything important." Grant and Leah looked at each other and burst out laughing. "That's our cue," Leah said, sitting up and smoothing her hair. "That's our life," Grant corrected, standing and offering her his hand. As they walked downstairs together to assess whatever minor disaster Isabella had created, and to referee the territorial dispute that had undoubtedly erupted between Charlotte and Benjamin, Grant felt the deep satisfaction of a life chosen consciously, rather than lived by default. He thought about the billions of dollars he might have made if he had continued on his original path, the international recognition he might have achieved, the empire he might have built. None of it seemed real or important compared to Isabella's gap-toothed grin as she showed them the tower of books she had built and accidentally knocked over, or Benjamin's careful explanation of how they could rebuild it even better, or Charlotte's immediate organization of a cleanup committee. This was his empire now. This house full of laughter and arguments and mess and love. This family that depended on him not for financial support, though that mattered too, but for presence, for consistency, for the simple act of choosing them every day over every other opportunity the world offered. The man who had sent divorce papers by email would never have understood that this was success. The man who held Isabella while Charlotte supervised Benjamin's book tower reconstruction understood that this was everything. Some people chase fortune and find emptiness. Others lose everything and discover what actually matters. Grant had been fortunate enough to nearly lose everything and still have the chance to choose what mattered most. As he watched his family navigate the complexity of toddler social dynamics and architectural engineering, Grant realized that the most profound transformations often happen not in boardrooms or on stages or in moments of public recognition, but in living rooms and backyards and quiet bedrooms where people choose love over fear, presence over achievement, and family over everything else the world insists should matter more. Looking at Leah as she documented their afternoon chaos with her camera, capturing the authentic joy and frustration and pure life that defined their daily existence, Grant understood that he had finally built something that would last. Not a financial empire that could be lost or stolen or devalued, but a foundation of trust and presence and commitment that would sustain their family through whatever challenges the future might bring. When someone offers you the world, the question isn't whether you deserve it, but whether you understand what you'd be giving up to get it. If Grant could go back in time, would he make the same choices that nearly cost him everything, knowing they eventually led him to this moment of complete contentment? Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.